Sasha says right here, isn't the most watched Pawn Stars episode when Gary the Pokemon King brought in all his Charizards and they passed on the deal? It's now worth 10 times what he was asking for it. What can you tell us about that episode? I know you and I did touch on it earlier, so you have something to say about that. Yeah, round out some context on that the Pokemon episode, which I did manage to see myself.
Yeah, so it is the most watched episode. It's got multiple streaming platforms that have over 15 to 20 million views a piece on it. And I was lucky enough to be involved with that one. I'll give you some context on that. When Gary came in, Gary was that expert. He was that guy I told you about, right? He is the guy that knew everything about this stuff. He had a pretty good understanding of value, but Gary was more of one of those guys that he didn't understand like market trends. He just knew that he bought it. It had value today. He really liked it, which is what's made him likable. That's what's made him the Pokemon King, right? And that episode is ultimately what kicked it off for him. That episode was really unique, and I love talking about it because I think it's important from our standpoint in the hobby to understand this, that sometimes what we believe or what we think after the fact should have happened, you have to understand a lot of things, right? And the first thing is that during the episode, not everything that was evaluated was shown. There was more than what was there. In fact, there was 2 stacks, probably about 50 to 70 each, of ungraded raw shadowless Charizards, right? So there was already like these 2 massive stacks, the stuff that he didn't grade, right? Then you had the stack of PSA 10s, which represented 20% of the market. I don't care what business you're in. If you own 20% of the market share of something, you can change the complexity of the market by how you activate that, whether you sell it, hold it, keep, whatever, right? And that was a very important part of this episode because everybody's going, well, Rick should have made an offer because Rick didn't make an offer on it. Rick didn't want to buy it. Sometimes you got to be good at what you're good at. And Rick understood that this was something that probably was a little over the shop's head and that they were going to have to lean on people like myself or even other sharps in that industry that even were stronger in the Pokemon market than I am, right? And to get involved with that. And then 2, when you own a market share like that, you have to plan how you sell it if you're selling it. You can't just go put an auction up of 10, PSA 10 Charizards. Let's let the first one go. That'll never work. You'll water the market down and it'll cannibalize itself. So it had to move through the marketplace on a more peer-to-peer level. And that's time. And time is money. So when we look at that episode and we say, oh, well, they could have bought it and 10x their money at the peak of the market. Well, first off, they had to foreshadow that the market was going to 10x. And I can tell you on the day that we filmed that, there's not a person in that building, in the building next to me, or across the country that thought the market was going to boom like it did. There's nobody that forecasted it to be that big of a boom. They may have saw it upticking. That's kind of what happens with especially those 90s properties, and that's one of them. They kind of cycle back, and then they go away, and they cycle back. But it was a really unique position for them because they could not be so invested into that and then risk that they were going to have to sell it over a 2-year period. Right. It was too much time. I don't care how much money it was. It was too much time to try to sell that out to really maximize their profit. At the end of the day, they have to do that. They have lights, employees.
Of course. No, great stuff. Fun information. Nice to know a little bit about sort of behind the scenes. Colin Murray was in the shop last year. Didn't see any sports cards, and I haven't been in there for a couple of years, but I don't know that I've ever seen a sports card in my 3 or 4 visits to the show. Sasha says here, Rick is an expert in so many subjects, but as long as he doesn't do sports cards, the shop will never specialize in sports cards. And I think that's fair. It's not a sports card shop. It's a pawn shop. They're supposed to do a bit of everything, right? And they, for the most part, they do touch on most things.